It's currently late September of 2018. The gardening season is almost over, what there was of it. In my area, we've experienced the wettest year ever recorded, and most of the gardens here were a total disaster, and almost everything died. The only tomato that I had that lived were self-sown Matt's Wild Cherry, which is indestructible essentially, but makes tiny tomatoes. These tomatoes were ones grown by my father about 20 miles south of here on a mountain ridge where there's perfect drainage, and he managed to get a few before the plants died. And these are a couple ones that he gave me. I gifted my father these plants because they were actually gifted to me as samples to trial, and I didn't have room or space at the time to plant them, so I gave them to him, and he did manage to give me a few to sample. These have been sitting on the counter for about a week, and then I put them in the fridge a few days ago to stop them from spoiling because they are essentially completely dead ripe. I wanted to get them absolutely ripe before I tasted them. So a little bit about these tomatoes. These were sent to me by 4-Star Greenhouses out of Carlton, Michigan as a trial, and these will be part of the Proven Winners plant brand for 2019. There's 2 tomatoes in this offering. Garden Treasure, the one on the left, which is a larger variety clearly, and Garden Gem on the right, which is more of a somewhere between a very small paste type and a grape type tomato from the appearance of it. In the center there's a piece of black crim, and that is my control essentially. Black crim I've been growing for about 25 years and saving seeds of, and I'm very familiar with the taste of that, so that's the one I can use to compare each of these two. And the flower in the center is a passion flower that opened today just for garnish. So a little bit about the breeding behind these tomatoes. These tomatoes were bred at the University of Florida by Dr.Harry Klee and his team. The goal here was to create tomatoes with modern productivity and disease resistance with heirloom flavor. And they went to great effort and trouble to do extremely elaborate taste testing and rating of tomatoes by the public, and also very scientific testing of tomatoes to discover what actually makes a good tomato taste and why do people consider tomatoes based on things like tartness, the different acids, malic acid, glutamic acid, glucose, fructose, the firmness or softness of the tomato, etc., the juiciness. And they have some pretty good ideas now about what makes a good tomato good and a bad tomato bad. And these tomatoes are some of the first ones out of that breeding program. The past several years, the only way you could get seeds of these was by making a $10 donation per packet to the breeding program, and they would send you a packet of seeds. These are F1 hybrids, is my understanding. They're both indeterminate, and they're both regular leafed, and both of them seem to produce fruit very early. At least they set fruit. They were rather slow to ripen, but in terms of the fruit set, it was very early. Now, I have not yet tasted these, but I would say that the fruits are very attractive. The Garden Treasure seems to be a pretty meaty tomato. The Garden Gem is very meaty. And both of them were unblemished and uncracked and unsplit, no cat facing, which is very remarkable considering the year, which, as I stated earlier, was incredibly wet. So the fact that they're unblemished is really good. Now, the plants weren't terribly productive because the wet year was really hard on tomatoes, and even the more disease resistant ones ended up getting diseased and getting knocked out fairly quickly. So this is all I have to try. So I'm going to try these and then think on it a little bit, and I'll tell you my thoughts. We're going to try the Garden Treasure first. That's pretty good. Actually, it's not bad at all. The flavor is mostly tart. It's fairly firm, not too firm. Not as soft as a dead ripe heirloom would be, but pretty good texture. And it's good flavored. It is pretty tart. There's a little hint of saltiness there, but it's pretty good. Let's try the black crim and compare the two. The black crim is much softer, much juicier, but actually it's much more bland. Much more bland. There's not nearly the complexity of flavor, and definitely not nearly the tartness. Let's try some more Garden Treasure. Yeah, the Garden Treasure is very tart, but it has a good flavor. This is a good tomato. This is a very good tomato, actually. Let's move on to Garden Gem. The Garden Gem is quite a bit firmer, thicker skin, not quite as juicy. Well, the Garden Treasure was not juicy particularly, but this is less juicy yet. And it's tart, but I think it is not quite as tart as the Garden Treasure. Not overly sweet. This reminds me more in most ways of just a good heirloom paste tomato. It's quite firm, the skin is quite thick. That's not unusual for paste tomatoes at all. Let's once again try the black crim and see if we can get a better idea here. Yeah, definitely the black crim is softer, juicier, not as strongly flavored, which is interesting, as I've always thought the black crim was a fairly strong flavored heirloom tomato with a lot of complexity. It's not that highly flavored compared to either one of these two. Yeah, these are nice tomatoes. I don't have much bad to say about these, actually. They are hybrids, and they're not readily available, and in the upcoming future they still will not be terribly readily available, but more so than what they have been in the past. The Garden Treasure was created by crossing, I believe it was German Pink, which is a large Brandywine school type of heirloom renowned for good flavor, with some sort of a more productive modern commercial hybrid. I'm not sure, and I'm not sure they're releasing that information. The Garden Gem was produced the same way, but its open pollinated parent was Maglia rosa, which is a open pollinated tomato, but it's been bred fairly recently in the past. But that's more of a cherry type tomato, but that's supposed to also have a really truly excellent flavor and is highly regarded for flavor. I can't speak very much to the disease resistance of these, as unfortunately the year was so terrible that not a lot of garden plants survived it. I lost all my garlic this year, I lost all my onions, I lost all my potatoes. Most things were essentially a total loss for a lot of people here, so it's hard to say about that, but in terms of taste and texture, these are really good. I really don't have a lot to complain about. Quite good. Nice looking, blemish free, fairly well flavored. Comparing them to black crim, which is, you know, I've always thought of as a pretty good flavored tomato, these are good. It may be the black crim was overly ripe, perhaps, but these are good. These are quite good, actually. And if you're looking for a tasty, I would definitely recommend them. For sure. Good looks, for sure. So once again, these are Garden Treasure and Garden Gem tomatoes, and they'll be available next year commercially through the Proven Winner plant brand. And I was kindly donated a small sample of these to trial. And once again, these were grown by my father's tomato crops here were a total mess. So that's it for the shorter video on tomato varieties, and this will be my only tomato variety video for this year. Thanks for watching.